All right, and welcome back to Casey Needs a Co-host, the preseason podcast for the very first season of Prometheus. Today, for the second podcast, we also again have Sherry from Conflict. Sherry, how you doing today?
Good. How are you doing today, Casey?
I am doing wonderful. I'm excited to get down to the next five people. You know, we have seven more people in general, but we'll be discussing these first five people with you. So let's just pop right into it. Our first person we have is David. So tell me what your thoughts are on David.
I liked David's interview. David seems very charismatic. He seems like the type that's going to go in there and play the game. I think he's going to be very strategic in his game. I think he's going to think about things he does, and I think he's going to enjoy the fast pacedness of it, just going off his interviews.
Yeah, I mean, David was definitely, there was only really two people who I instantly knew that I wanted for this season. David wasn't actually one of those people, but he was pretty much a high contender. I think for the most part, everyone who was in the game, they were the high contenders. The actual two people that I really wanted to be in the game right off the bat was Caro and Sam. I actually talked about Caro with John in the previous podcast.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, of Conquest. Love John. John's a great guy. But yeah, so Caro and Sam were the two people, and then there was just a number of people who were like, these are top contenders. And so yeah, David was definitely one of them. So for those who need a little bit of filling in, you know, as what was on David's application, he's 27 years old. He's from Texas. He is a band director.
Middle school on top of it. So, middle school is the hardest. Trust me, as a teacher, middle school is the roughest. So he's a middle school director, band director.
I actually completely forgot that he was a middle school band director. I knew he was a band director, but I forgot it was middle school.
Because I was like, damn, that boy has his work cut out for him.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a guy that generally likes to have fun. And even like seeing his Facebook posts about like his kids in middle school, like the way he teaches them. I mean, he definitely seems like he's one to get people to gravitate towards him.
Yeah, and he said he's a huge fan of the Circle, and I guess he's played the Circle, and then I think if I understood correctly, he ran an org based off the Circle or something with the Circle.
He's okay. So the org part, I'm not sure about, and like I said during the last podcast, I haven't really watched these audition videos in a while. I'm just kind of over that part. But yeah, he's definitely played a couple games of the Circle. He's won two of them. He played a couple different Survivor type games. He's only played one Big Brother, and I think as of his audition, he was still currently playing it. But he knows what it takes to win a game, because like I said, he's won two Circle games. In addition to that, for those who do watch the Circle, he has met Tara Alicia before. I guess they must, even though he's not like friends with Tara Alicia, I think they run in a similar sort of school district, because Tara Alicia is also a teacher.
Right.
So he's met Tara Alicia before, and I believe he is acquaintances with Chris Sapphire from the first season. For those
I loved Chris. Tara Alicia blew up her game in season 2. We're not even going to go there, but I
love Tara Alicia though. I love Tara Alicia though.
Yeah, but she blew up her damn game.
Savannah's the one that I did not like. Savannah blew it up for them both. But Tara Alicia, she is at fault a little bit too. But
she fed into it. She fed into Savannah's bullshit.
Oh, she did. That is a whole other conversation. Not that's for another this podcast. But yeah, so yeah, David, Texas. He knows these people. He's played these games. He knows his shit, and he is a very likable social person.
He seems very strategic. He has a really good sense of humor, and he even says that I'm a very humorous person. The only thing that I can't wait to see is he's like, I don't like any drama. And I'm like, you're playing Survivor, and it's one of those fast-paced ones. So I can't wait to see how he handles the drama. That's because he says, I don't like drama. Well,
So we'll leave David at that. So our next person we'll be talking about is Joe. So what are your thoughts on Joe?
Joe, he really cracked me up. He is a challenge beast. That in a game like this could take him really far because challenges is a good, you win, you have immunity, you're not going anywhere. Um, so I really, really, really like that about him. He also said in other games he finds idols. He's like very good at making alliances with people. But he has a ninth place curse on him that bothers him. So he sounds like in the beginning he'll probably be a middle of a ground player while he's sneaking around grabbing those idols and trying not to make himself too big of a target. But if he makes it to merge and he is a challenge beast like he proclaims, I say look out, watch out, here comes Joe.
Yeah, Joe is very interesting due to the fact that I think of all the people that I interviewed, he's like one of the only people that actually says that he is a challenge beast. Um, and he even says it, right in the beginning of the game, not really dipping into spoilers. And he said it during his intro video, which we used. We took a line from every single person's intro video and we put it in their promos. So yeah, it's the thing. He's like the only one that says that because me personally, I think a number of org challenges, generally speaking, are kind of crapshoots.
Right.
Really, almost anyone can win a lot of them. A lot of orgs tend to use a lot of fucking solo cup challenges, ping pong ball challenges. Um, Pointing to you that you agree with that or you like to use those challenges.
I do. I like to use them. It's a good. You're limited with what people have around them, so you always try to make. You have that org box is what we call it, and we always know you got ping pong balls, cards, blindfolds, polo cup, solo cups, pencils, pens. Everybody in orgs. If you don't keep that in your box, you're not an orger, right?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I do. I really do. And I think the convenience and money factor is why, yeah, a lot of people do it. I also do think, and I'm not saying anyone specific because I genuinely like don't have anyone specific in mind, but like I do think some people just kind of default to a lot of like old games that just kind of are like constantly repeated, which was something for Prometheus I didn't want to do. I didn't want to necessarily fall back on the same games, but I've seen some interesting ones that I obviously used. Everyone kind of does it. So, but yeah, kind of just swinging back to Joe. He admits that he's a challenge beast. It's clearly something that gets him through a number of these games, and he's played, I believe, pretty much like all survivor based games. I don't
Yes,
think
he
he's
said
ever
that.
played Big Brother or anything like that. Like he's played SUH Viver, Fam Viver, Zer Viver, Ring Viver, ninth place, ninth place, ninth place.
That's what he said. His ninth place curse.
Yeah, he did place I think based on looking at his application, if I'm like kind of lining every placement up with the org names, because they were two separate questions, he placed second in FamViver. It was a final three, and the votes were 4-3-0. So he lost in FamViver by one vote. But yeah, Joe was interesting due to the challenge, portion of his audition or interview, whatever you want to call it. One thing that also kind of struck me is that, and maybe this is my experience with musical theater majors. Most of the musical theater majors that I'm familiar with, because I went to a performing arts college, they're really loud, really expressive, constantly fucking singing down the hallway at 2 o'clock in the morning or this, that, or the other. Joe is actually really chill. He's a really chill dude. And also for those who don't know, but Joe is the only international player. He's from the UK. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, it was just very interesting. I thought he could be very entertaining for the show, but he was not as animated and as expressive in his interview as I thought he might be, given that he was an MT.
Yeah, because he says right in there he's a musical student. But I did like the confidence. He's like, I found two idols in one game, but I did go home with them. And I was like, oh, that poor boy. Because he was real quick to say that. But I did take him out when I left the game in ninth place. So I'm curious to see if he's going to break that ninth place curse in your game. that he feels he's under right now, if he makes it that far or if he surpasses it. So it'll be fun to watch Joe. And I'm hoping in the game he was much more animated for you because he does come off very stoic in his interview.
Yeah. But that's not to say that, someone like that can't be likable.
No, very much so. And he came off likable in his interview. I just hope he really didn't go on there and be like, I'm a challenge beast. I'm a challenge beast. Because now I perceive Joe is becoming too big of a threat somewhere down the game and getting sent home early. Because in a game, that's something you usually don't want to advertise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but you know what? In my experience with these games too, for some reason, which I get the transparency aspect of a lot of these orgs, you got to be transparent because in the reality of it, anyone can find you online, find your games, find your history. But in my experience, a lot of people love to overshare in the beginning. They were a rat or they were a challenge beast or they were this, that, or the other. And it's like, why are you telling people this information? But yeah, so yeah, kind of have to keep it under wraps.
If nobody knows me in a game, I try to act like I've never played before. I
Yeah.
did it in Survivor. I acted like, oh, this is only like it's like now I've ever played.
I mean, that was a very international season, so you could get away with that. So
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. And of course, there came Dakota, but he kept his mouth shut.
all right, so we're gonna move on to the next person. We have Caitlin. What did you think of Caitlin?
Okay, I think Caitlin's going to be underestimated in this game because she is such a creative person. She's an actor, so I think, is going to be a lot more adaptable in a lot of scenarios. She is brand new to all this. I think she said she watched Survivor though. I can't remember now. I didn't write it down, but I remember I wrote down in big, huge letters. I think she's going to be underestimated. I don't think people are going to. I think Caitlin has a good shot of making merge because people are going to underestimate her and think they can maybe possibly pull her along with them. But Caitlin being creative, and I liked how she was showing her creative side because she's a house flipper. She does wardrobe. She does a lot. She's a jack of all trades in her industry, it sounds like to me. So that shows her adaptability. Look at how, I'm a house flipper, but I also do this and I also do that. And I was like, wow. And it all comes down to being a creative individual to do what she does. So if I'm getting a good read on her, I think she has a good shot of being underestimated in the game, just seen but not heard until she's ready to maybe make her moves, or maybe she'll go as a pawn. But I see her. I like the creative people in this game because they're the ones that'll think outside the box.
It's a very interesting take on it. I got to be honest, that is not how I initially read her. I also thought because she's only 24 years old and
Young.
24, right? 24. Yeah, she's only 24. And I remember when she was saying, like, oh, yeah, over the past year, I got it. I don't even remember what her original job was. But yeah, in the past year, she was like, yeah, I've gone into flipping houses. And I'm thinking, okay, so let's say she started doing that when she's 23. What the hell? What the 23-year-old is like, I'm going to buy a house and then I'm going to flip it. Like, I wish I had that kind of initiative. You probably make a good amount of money. Also, I mean, so she clearly has, passion and drive. And so that was what I originally got out of that interview. And initially, too, I remember her saying something along the lines of like, I started to become kind of known in my circle of the org community because obviously there are like, all these, bunch of little org communities, and then they start to overlap in areas. So I don't remember how she even found Prometheus, but I was just
I think she said Reddit.
Yeah. I think that was it. Yeah. So, I mean, that was great. So it's like, no one knows her. I guess if you're saying she's creative and I'm thinking she's driven and passionate and stuff like that, she could bring something very interesting to the game. And I really liked her. And I mean, looking at her placements based on her application, she's also from Texas too. Like I said, David's from Texas as well, but she's played a little bit of everything. Looks like Survivor type games, Big Brother type games, 8th, 7th, 5th, 3rd, and then a pre-merge boot. But 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 8th, all really good placements, especially that 3rd, and 5th.
That's why I figure she's going to be underestimated because people aren't going to know her. They're not going to know her background. So she's going to come in. I could see her very easily going with the flow, sticking with the majority, coming out at merge and taking over the game, or going after the game and, eventually going big and going home. But I do think she's going to be underestimated in the beginning. Again, I could be really, really wrong. She might come off too strong and come in and try to play too hard. But because sometimes when you do have those higher placements, you tend to come in a little bit too hard and don't pace yourself. And I don't see that with her. I think she's going to be more underestimated, but she seems really bouncy, really there. So I think she's probably going to be well liked because she was just very bubbly in her interview.
Yeah. And I think she said that looking at her application blurb, which I actually forgot to read you, David and Joe's, but she says, I'm a fierce female player. I'm a fan favorite in the community I currently play in, and I'm looking for a new community to play with, as I do not want to be continued to be viewed as a threat. I have not yet won, but I want to keep fighting until I do.
Hey, Caitlin, conflict.
She actually also currently, as of yesterday or 2 days ago, she just finished her org's very first season. If I remember correctly, Caitlin, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. She's a big American Horror Story fan. More specifically, she loves. I don't watch it, so Sherry, if you know it, you can correct me. Is there a season called Occult? Or witches or something?
No, it's called
Coven.
And there's the witches seasons too.
There's the Coven, right?
The Coven.
Okay.
There was two. They combined two. They did a whole season on the Coven, and then they did an end of the world platform where they brought in like the Murder House and Coven. They kind of mixed up a few. They brought in a couple of the few for the end of the world. One they did before 1984, the Apocalypse.
Okay, so her game that she just finished 2 days ago, it's a full org, and it's called Supreme Survivor. And
so it was based on the Coven, the Supreme.
Yeah, it is an entire, and it is the first time I've ever seen this in the org community, is in an entire fucking cast of women.
Oh, congrats to you, Caitlin. Congrats to you. That is very difficult to do nowadays in this org world because it's so diverse with different everything. So that's a big bonus for her.
I wouldn't even exactly say it's diverse. It is very male dominated, unfortunately. Yes. We need more female players in these games. But yeah, I was stunned when I saw the cast. I was like, holy shit, that's 18. I think it was 18 women. I'm like, that's impressive.
It really truly is, because I signed up for all female game that was supposed to take place this summer and they had to cancel it because they didn't get enough girls.
Yeah. So kudos to her. Like I said, you get a second, check out Supreme. Yeah,
for sure will now.
I'm going to just kind of roll back for a second. I want to read the other couple of people's blurbs, and then we're going to jump to Sam, who is our other player. So for David, his blurb was really small. I'm LGBT. I'm Latino. I connect with people fairly well. I'm strategic. Short, simple, and to the point. Love it. As for Joe, Joe said, I'm quite a different player. I'm quite a different player to how most people present themselves in orgs. I'm actively very loyal. I often find myself in a Dom Wendell type relationship and don't go out of my way is what he meant to say, to snake people unless I have to. I also have a very strong ability at finding idols, but I am terrible at playing them, which really epitomizes me.
The poor kid's still traumatized by the two idols he took home.
And then I'm subdued chaos. So
I'm not sure what subdued chaos is, but I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, I've never heard that descriptor before.
So on the inside, he's chaotic. He just doesn't let it show on the outside, but he's willing to change his vote at the last second, maybe throwing votes. That could be. We'll see. I'll be interested now.
That's Joe. That's David. That's Caitlin. So we're going to move on to our final newbie, but not our final talk for tonight. Our final newbie, which is Sam. Sam is the youngest player in the game at 18 years old. So what did you think of Sam?
So Sammy, I like the way, because she had Sammy written on her thing. So I had Sammy in my head. She said Sam or Sammy. I liked the Sammy because it kind of gave her more playful. But I like the fact that she basically starts out saying that in the beginning, she wants to be useful, but not viewed as a threat. And that could vote really well in the beginning of any game. You want to always appear useful, but not somebody that they need to get rid of. But the problem with that is you can find yourself playing under some stronger or bigger players. And with her being new, she doesn't know yet where her position is going to lie in an actual game. So I'm concerned that she might actually turn into more of a loyal pawn without realizing she has turned into a pawn just because they'll include her into the vote, let her know what's going on. But at the same time, if she's really strategic, she can use that information and maybe even turn it against them. But right now I see Sammy sticking with her, whoever her group becomes, being loyal to them, being useful to them, and possibly becoming a pawn to them or go out with them. You know, together we rise, together we fall kind of scenario. But I see her kind of being more loyal, but I do like that she's so diverse. She'll play video games. She's a nerd. She loves her anime. So I could see her blending in with pretty much anybody in the game without their, with her different hobbies that she has. So she is, like she said, she's a full-time student. So she has plenty of time for all the extras. So I could really see her with her young usefulness getting in there and really getting up into everybody's game. But what she does with it, that's going to depend on her. Because I could see her really becoming a pawn.
Which I think oftentimes happens with a lot of like new players. Now, as for Sam, she watches reality competitions, but she's never done an org before. Obviously, like I said, she's the final new player. But yeah, she goes to the university I graduated from, when I was doing everything for Prometheus, I threw some stuff out within the film and acting networks that I'm connected to. Excuse me. And she saw it somewhere on there, and that's how she found it. Yeah, so she's like I said, because she likes acting and stuff like that, she is, she's young, she's energetic, she's outgoing. I feel like she could assimilate herself well as just like everything that I had in my head at the time. And like I said, in addition to Sam, Kara was the other person who I was just like, these two are absolute must have in the game. But yeah, I really like Sam. One thing that did crack me up about her interview, if I remember correctly, she has a picture of some president, and
I think it was Reagan. I think it was Reagan that she had bought.
I think she kept calling the president Reagan, but it wasn't Ronald Reagan.
It was Nixon. It was Nixon, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Maybe
Nixon?
it was. It was either she had a picture of Nixon for some reason and she kept calling Nixon Reagan, or she had a picture of Reagan.
Too, the picture directly behind her, I'm pretty sure I was thinking Nixon, but maybe she's talking about a Reagan picture and has it in a different part of her room. Or maybe she just doesn't know her presidents. I don't know.
Maybe, but then again, I feel like a lot of people don't really know their presidents. But I don't know. It's just like something. It's something like almost this innocent mistake that I just thought was like really funny. And I didn't have the heart to correct her.
And then she had her anime card with her playing, the volleyball, and I thought that was cute too.
Yeah, she definitely is a very unique person. She also has a bit of a TikTok following as well. Now, granted, TikTok is kind of an easy place to maybe get one or two, explosive videos, but I think she has in the tens of thousands or maybe even 100,000 plus followers on TikTok. Because she definitely is tapped into a very specific market. But yeah, she's very fun. Absolutely.
She does need to clarify that president thing with us, though, because right behind her, I'm pretty sure that was Nixon.
Yeah, if I have to, now just talking about it, I'm going to have to go back and watch.
But then she keeps saying again. Reagan, but I wasn't sure. I'm like, is she referring to the picture behind her? Or?
I mean, maybe she had just a bunch of random pictures of presidents. I don't know. But I think I do remember her saying at one point, like, what 18-year-old girl has a picture of a president? And I'm just like, yeah, that's true. I don't think there are a lot. But anyway, yeah, looking at her blurb, she wrote one of the biggest blurbs of anyone on her forum. So I forget what the actual initial question was on the application, but it was just like, tell us something unique about you. And she says, why, you ask? Have my responses thus far not tickled your fancy? Is your interest not piqued? Jokes. In all seriousness, you should pick me for 4 reasons. 1, I'm a massive fucking nerd, and I mean that in the broadest sense. I've seen 147 anime so far in my 18 lovely years. I spend too much of my day watching Twitch streamers. I could probably talk about Harry Potter and or Game of Thrones lore for a long time. I have 11 full Broadway soundtracks memorized. I'm a jack of all trades when it comes when it comes to being embarrassed. Oh, when it comes to being embarrassing. Reason two, I'm an attractive woman. These two reasons do not typically come in succession of one another. I'm an enigma. Reason three, seeing it as your first season, you likely don't have too much support, but I have a TikTok. Here it is. I have a TikTok with 163,000 followers. That should be a factor. Um, Before you think this is me bribing you, like I said, this is very long.
I love that.
Before you think this is me bribing you, I make anime and cosplay content. Trust me, I'm humbled enough already. Reason four, I've been told that in some circles I'm seen as kind of funny, but in all seriousness, this seems like a ton of fun, and I'm 100% willing to be my cynical, whimsical, know-it-all self in front of any kind of audience. So,
Love it, love it, love it. Like I said, I had a lot written about Sammy. Sammy was very interesting. I loved her interview. I would have casted her without a doubt. Also, she would have had it. Um, and I like her thought process going in, and she had me sold when she said video games, and I just can't wait to see how she does. I just hope they don't turn her into a pawn. That was my only concern about her game with her being new.
well, I guess we will see soon enough what her game will amount to. So moving on to our final person for this portion of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Zach Pedretti. So what did you think about Zach?
I guess he's coming off of a win, so his motivation is there. So he's gonna do whatever he wants, is what it sounds like. Which does, to me, that almost sounds like I'm gonna come in and play however I'm gonna feel like playing, because I've just won a game, so I'm gonna try something different, which sounds to me like I'm gonna play too hard and end up maybe being a first boot, or get my name's gonna be spread around. I can almost see that happening with this kid. Is he becomes somebody they put up, and maybe he backs down a little. It sounds like he's going to come in and play strong, because just by what he says and just that opening, the I'm going to play however I want kind of version to me sounds like, uh-oh. Now he is going to be trouble. He is going to be chaotic, because he's going to play by his own rules. And if I understand him clearly, he's kind of got the, excuse the language, but the fuck you attitude to everybody. I'm going to do it my way this game, because I just won. So I'm here to see how much I can tear shit up and see if I can still make it to the end.
All right, interesting. Kind of going off Zach, I liked him. He seemed like he was a fun personality, someone who could introduce potentially a bit of chaos. Originally, one of our old senior production members who was a part of the casting process fought pretty hard to get Zach in. Not to say that Zach wasn't in the running, because he definitely was, but I think at one point it actually came down to one last spot, and it was between David and Zach. And our one member of production fought really hard for Zach, but then we ended up switching up the casting before we officially announced it, and both Zach and David both got in. But Zach is 20 years old. He's a full-time student. On his application, he only has 2 games listed. He has Trinity and 1984. Trinity, he placed ninth. 1984, he won. I think 1984, I'm assuming, is a Big Brother game.
I think 1984 flip flops back and forth. One season it can be BB, one season it can be Survivor. Because one season I was interested in playing it, but I don't do BB games. It's not my forte. So I was like, oh, I want to apply, and then I realized it was BB. And then I've also heard during the game they're also known to throw in as a twist. You might start out as a Survivor, but they like to twist it up, and next thing you know, you're playing a BB game.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've heard but I've heard a lot of positive feedback about 1984.
I mean, if that's the case, that really speaks to any player that could win that. That really speaks to adaptability, and adaptability is a very, very key part of these games. So,
agreed. Like, there's this other game out there where it always amazes me when people win. It's Dylan. He does I Love Money. And that game is so twisty turny, and it's not a Survivor game. It's not a BB game. It is based off the show I Love Money, and he does it.
I don't know that.
Oh, look it up on YouTube. It's I Love Money. I think it's DH1 is what it might be listed under, but it's a very unique format, and it's not an easy game to win. That one too, whenever I see somebody who's won that game, it always impresses me, because Dylan doesn't make it easy. He likes to do unique challenges as much as he can. So when I hear like 1984 you won, I kind of think, wow, you're probably a really decent player. And when I hear you win like certain games, you just know, like Conquest, Double Cross, 1984. There's games out there that are built a good reputation. And if you hear people say they've won that game, you kind of go, okay, this person probably knows what the hell they're doing. So I would say
that's good
Zach,
to get that insight. That's why I love to have you on.
yeah. So Zach coming from 1984, will it project him though to come in and play too big and send his butt pack in too early? We'll see, because he's coming in pretty strong with that attitude, like, fuck it, I'm going to do it my way. And I'm interested to see how he's going to do.
I mean, also with these intro videos that I talked about, because everyone had to submit an intro video before the official game started. And so, like, obviously we saw one of the lines that we took from the intro video and we plugged it into the promo, you know, and you mentioned too about him, like, he won his game. He's going to fuck shit up. He's going to play the way he wants. That is a wild card. And so that was very interesting to hear that, because, you know, it is a big part of unpredictability. You have no clue what's going to happen with that person.
And a lot of times people don't want to play with the wild card because you don't know where they're really at.
I hate wild card players,
too,
and I don't like watching them in reality competitions either. I think the only wild card player in any reality competitions I've ever watched that I liked was Abby Maria, and that was solely because she's fucking so entertaining. It's ridiculous, but I hate those types of players. I hate those players. I really don't like
when
them.
she turned on Jeff Vernon, it about died.
God, shit, how many people did she turn on that season alone? But
yeah,
one of my favorite.
She's easy to manipulate, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, you know, I think with that season, though, she was feeling a little bit down. And so, like, the manipulation wasn't necessarily purposeful manipulation, I guess. It was just someone being nice to her. And that's why she gravitated. But yeah, one of my favorite scenes of that season is when she, if I remember correctly, in her confessional, she says that she's not going to do anything drastic. And the confessional cuts out to her instantly confronting PG on the beach while she's in the middle of a conversation. Is so hysterical. It's my favorite moment of that whole season. But anyway, yeah, back to Zach really quick. So his blurb says, coming off a win from my last org, I'm looking for a shorter, less time consuming game to play and have some fun in. I'm strategic, but a messy player who would bring some chaos energy to the season. With a cash prize of $250, I'd be willing to put it all on the line for a second win. Being another cis white gay male in the org community doesn't really make me stand out too much, but I have passion and drive to do well and play hard in these games. That would make me a great fit for an inaugural season.
I agree with them. Makes them a good fit for an inaugural season. Again, if in a game like this where things are split judgment, that kind of personality is the personality that could get you sent home quickly.
100%. So I guess we will have to see with Zach.
Did we get a hint? Did we get any hints? You'll
see maybe in the intro coming up on Thursday, and then the game on Saturday. So just
I'm super excited. I'm super excited.
But yeah, so I guess that's kind of it for our 5. Before we head on to our next host, Sherry, do you have any final thoughts about any of these contestants? And now that you've actually talked about, drop my pen. Now that you have actually talked about 10 of these people, how do you think who's your odds-on favorite to win, or just aside from even the odds-on favorite to win, who is your favorite of these 10?
I'm still loving Tiki. I still think Tiki is going to be a very strong player to get past. I'd like to see Tiki and David hook up, but I foresee them not even starting on the same tribe. I don't know why, but I don't feel like they're going to start together. So I really think that Mara and Sammy, I think Sammy would be, I know it's funny to say because Mara's the cheerleading mom, the stay-at-home mom who watches kids. For some reason, I think she could see Sammy and just, I don't know, I could just see those two just bonding it up. Oddly enough, even though there's other people in this game that also work with kids, there's a middle school teacher, there's another young girl who's at a school, you know, but I don't know. Tiki is still one of my favorite players. I still see him as a winner, and I'd like to see what's going to happen when him and David have to work together or work apart from each other. I'm curious because they'll either be out to get each other or they're going to work together. And I mean, it's only 2 ways, right?
Interesting.
I'm really curious to see how some of these players are going to play off of each other. Like I said, because Sammy, I see becoming super popular. I'd like to see Sammy also hanging out with Anna, Because with her quirkiness, Sammy's quirkiness, you get those two together, they could actually be fun just to watch in general.
Hmm. All right. Well, I guess you heard it here. Thank you, Sherry, for coming on the
Thank
podcast
you.
today. And, maybe we'll be seeing you again very soon for the podcast on the actual episodes.
All right, guys. Peace out and be good.
All right. And we are back for our second segment. Now we have McKenna, who is the co-host and editor of the Survivor Game Show Network. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on, and especially last minute. I really appreciate that. So we are going to be talking about two people for the final portion of this podcast, and that is, we'll start off with Colin. So we have Colin. I know Colin outside of the game. He is kind of a closer friend, not super close, but I definitely approached him very early on to be in this game because starting up as a new org, you never know how many applications you're going to get. So we still went through the process to kind of see how well he would do, but he was pretty much a shoo-in. And he also played on in another game that we also played on. We didn't play in the same season, but different seasons. So he's really only played one other game before, and it was a mini. He also played a sequester mini as well. So he's played two games before. They're both minis. So I guess he's prepped for the mini format. So what did you think of Colin and his promo and the interview video you got to see?
I think he could be strong, but I feel like he would get in his own head a lot. He seemed to think one thing, backtrack, and kind of re-say something. So with a mini, you very much have to go with your gut and like your first kind of instinct, because you just don't have time to restructure, plan, think fully things out.
Okay. Did you ever get to see the other game he was on at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, it was about a year ago. But yeah, Colin, from what I do know of Colin, he's a very social person. So, going into this, I'm thinking, Colin will be a very social player. As for the strategic and competitive side, it was really anyone's guess. But I was thinking, okay, he's likable, he's social, so that was kind of my like main thing with casting him. So before we move on to the next person, Colin is 27 years old. He's an artist from Pennsylvania. Like I said, he was really only in two games before. He placed 7th in his first game, and then he placed 11th in his second game. I think his second game, because Sequester's like a crazy game, he got out on some like dumb twist. But for his actual blurb that he posted on his application form, he said, other than bullshit twists, which I guess is what the reference is to Sequester, I'm actually a good social player who can go far. I'm a great social player who can manipulate bitches into voting my way. In my previous games, I've been able to get advantages, which is always boss. I'm gay and I'm here to stay, babe. So that was Colin's little blurb on his application form. So
one thing that I did notice in the video you sent me was he said he focuses on one thing until they go away, but which is good if there's like this big overarching threat where like you want to rally the community around like, hey, get this person, but then other people, while you're focusing on that one person, slowly start to arise. So that was just my one little, I think Colin could do well because of a mini style social game, like really helps with like making those fast immediate connections. But that was my one little thing where I'm like, there could be other things arising while you're focusing on that one thing.
Definitely. That could be a big hindrance to any player. You have to be vigilant of everyone in the game, and you can't get too focused. I mean, especially as we said in the mini, things are constantly moving, they're shifting. It's all really fast paced. I mean, one person could be a massive target one round, and then 2 rounds later, they're at the bottom. No one really cares about them anymore because 3 other targets have, popped up on everyone's radar. But all right,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna move on to Lauren now. So I obviously you are probably very fond of Lauren. You work with
Yeah.
Lauren. I played in a game with Lauren before. We didn't have very much interaction during the game. Most of our interaction happened way after the game. And Lauren is an awesome person. But I'll let you actually, just let's hear about Lauren.
Well, yeah, Lauren is my co-host in the minis over on Survivor Game Show Network, and she just played in the season that we are currently airing. So I know a lot about kind of how Lauren decides to play a game. And when I heard she was going to do another one, I knew she was like ready to play and set her mind into the zone, because she kind of played a different character in this game that she was in for us, where this one she was like, that didn't work for me. I'm going to try going back to basics, social game. So if you connect with Lauren immediately, that's her ride or die, and she will take you to the end, no questions asked. So she plays a very loyal game where she does have the strategic chops, but she's very just, this is Lauren.
Yeah. I really like Lauren. She's a really good person. She very clearly knows the game. She also co-hosts, I guess that would technically be the right word, co-hosts with Johnny Fairplay, if I'm not mistaken, on his
On the
podcast.
challenge, yeah.
And I think they just started the new season of the challenge up too.
Mhm.
So I mean, she's a veteran of these games. She knows the strategies. She definitely has a fiery side to her. In my experience, and also based off our conversations, Lauren seems to, and you even said it too, she seems to play a character in these games. I don't think she often plays herself. And I think sometimes she does it to kind of help friends out who are hosting these orgs or whatever. And so I think the character she plays generally drums up entertainment, but
Right.
does not necessarily help her win these games.
No, correct. So I think after this last game she just played with us, she was very much ready for her redemption arc, because she knows she didn't play the best. So she was ready for that. Like, I can see her going guns a-blazing into your game, just ready to fight and ready to get that win, more than I'm ready to play for my friends and try and entertain people. She's more, I think, for your game, hungry for that win.
Yeah, and I think also I think she was kind of, I could be wrong, but I think she was kind of giving up on these games right before Prometheus started. And she was actually the first female alternate for our season. So she didn't initially get the acceptance, but like 2 days later, someone dropped out, and it was just like, awesome. I want Lauren in anyway. But yeah, she definitely has a fiery side, and I think honestly that can really hinder her. I think it's what's caused her some, pretty big enemies in the past. And I mean, you could tell that sometimes that fiery side, that like attitude of hers, comes out when she gets very frustrated, or
Yeah.
she's in a less than ideal spot.
Oh, of course.
So yeah, I mean, I've seen Lauren get that way, and that right there, though, that frustration, at least based on my interpretation, that frustration actually seems like genuine. It does not seem like her character, which is, like I said, I think it's something in these games that she needs to learn to get a good grasp on, because that could really make her feel unlikable to people, and then potentially hinder what is obviously a very social game.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But I definitely, I am high on Lauren always. I mean, she's one of my best friends, so I hope she does well.
Yeah, well, hopefully. And I mean, we'll see starting with the premiere this Saturday. So hopefully everyone tunes in for that. So before we wrap things up on the podcast today, do you have any final thoughts on Colin or Lauren?
I think Colin might try maybe too hard, and people might notice him as one of those big early threats, where he might go toward the beginning of the merge unless he gets that kind of army behind him where he can move forward. I think Lauren will probably lay low or try as much as she can to lay low in the beginning rounds and then really kind of ramp up as the merge hits where she can maybe win a few immunities and kind of go from there. And hopefully her social people are around her to help bring her forward as well.
Okay, well then you heard it here. So I guess actually really this final time before we end this, if you would like to plug anything and everything.
Oh, thank you. Well, we are nearing the end of our season. So if you go over to Survivor Game Show Network, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. You can catch the second to last episode airing tomorrow and the finale on Monday.
All right. Yeah. And there will be a link in the description. I think they also have playlists on their channel. So even if you want to go back and start the season from the beginning, you can do that as well. All right. Thank you once again for coming on today. And thank you everyone for tuning in. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. And on that note, thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.